Hi there, Bob Orchard, come to you from Old Town Mariposa, and I have with me today somebody who has been part of my life for many, many years.
Too long, Bob.
Too long. John McCamman.
Good to see you.
John used to be our county administrative officer when I was a much younger man. Then John went off to bigger and better things. And one of those things involved a little stint with the California Department of Fish and Game.
Right.
And then you went over to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife.
Right.
And you did administrative things. Now I have to ask you a serious question. Okay?
Okay. I guess. I don't promise to answer it, but
why do they call you the Birdman of Mariposa?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, well, that's a good question. I don't know why they do that, but I did have a stint at the end of my career as the California Condor coordinator for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So the endangered species, the California condor, is managed by the Fish and Wildlife Service through a number of organizations, including the San Diego, LA, and Oregon zoos, Santa Barbara Zoo, the Center for Birds of Prey, a number of organizations that there has to be a coordinated effort in order to ensure the survival of the species. And that's the goal of that whole group of entities, is to try and ensure the survival of this species, California condor.
Okay.
And I did that for 3.5 years before I retired.
So the real story here is that your birds came to visit you.
Yeah. It was kind of fun. Recently. On July 22nd, for the first time since 1953, 4 California condors flew into Mariposa County from the south. They came up through Tejon and then up the back of the Sierras, and they flew to Mount Buckingham, which am I saying that right one? Which is right near my house, and flew there, and then turned west just for a mile or so, and then turned back south. So they were visiting for the day. And they actually, all the stud numbers, they know the numbers, they're all tracked. So everybody's got a GPS and a sign on them. The stud numbers are all of birds that were born while I was coordinator of the California Condor. So it felt like they were grandkids coming home. Yeah, it was a homecoming. I wasn't at home. They didn't tell me beforehand they were coming, but so I wasn't home.
So they missed you?
They missed me. But they came right up to my house and then went back home. And their home base is in Ventura County, so they were a little less than 200 miles on their route. So
this is pretty exciting.
Yeah, it shows an opportunity.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
First off, knowing Birdman is really a pretty big honor for me.
Yeah.
You know, I get a lot of beer bought for me because I know you.
Oops.
But the other part of this story is that the Condor story is a major success story.
It is.
And in this day and time, success stories in terms of wildlife are hard to find.
Well, in fact, there's talk about this being the 6th, I think, die-off of wildlife happening right now. Number of species are blinking out regularly, not the big megafauna ones like the condor, because we spend a lot of resources to try and preserve those, but on the micro level, up through the American pika and a number of other critters that are threatened right now, and endangered and threatened. California condors was one of the earliest identified as potentially threatened. It was started to be studied well, and as early as 1880s there was some work done on it, kind of the first animal, but in the 40s and 50s there was actually a lot of studying done. In the late 60s, early 70s, when in what became the Endangered Species Act was introduced, California condors was on that original list of being a threatened species, endangered species actually.
So How do you think what is the prognosis with respect to their survival given the climate change we're dealing with?
Well, so they're very adaptable in terms of climate change. They're not considered one of the birds at risk because of climate change, because they can move easily and readily throughout their range. But there are other threats that are significant. In California, one of the things that has happened is to limit the use of lead ammunition for hunting. So right now in California, as of June this year, wildlife that's hunted, like deer is the most common example, you can't use lead ammunition to kill them, because what was happening was the lead ammunition would go into a deer, and if you didn't recover the carcass, or if you left the guts in the field, it would have lead in it, and the condors could access that lead, eat the offal or the meat, and contract lead poisoning. And they have a very acidic intestinal system that breaks down the lead and gets in their bloodstream, and it kills pretty readily. So we were losing lots of them. Over half of about half of the condors that have been born since the captivity program happened in 1987, about half have died, and most of those have died because of lead poisoning that we know about. The ones we know about have been largely because of lead poisoning.
So now,
we've taken lead out of the hunting system. It can still be used for target practice, but it can't be used for hunting, and therefore it won't be seen in meat by the condors, and won't be ingested and have that consequence. So because of those kind of changes, we're able to say that the prognosis is much better for the birds now. There have been over 1,000 birds born since 1987, when the last one was captured. There were none in the wild at all in 1987. And actually on Easter Sunday, 1987, none in the wild at all. They were only in zoos, and there weren't very many of them in zoos. There was as few as 23 of them total. In 1982, actually, was the worst year. But the last one was captured in 1987, and they weren't re-released until 92, and actually that didn't work very well. Most of those died, and we couldn't figure out why, except for lead became the predominant issue then. And then re-released again in 97, 95, 97, and have been growing ever since. So right now, today, there are about 500 alive of those 1,000 that have been born, and of those, about a little over 300 are flying in the wild, and 200 are in captive breeding programs and are still used to breed the birds. So that's a remarkable success. It's not sufficient, however, because the ones that are in the wild still have to be managed very closely. They have to be supplemental feeding, not because there's not enough food out there, but because we got to be able to capture them and test their blood and make sure that they're not getting exposed to lead. So it's a big process, takes a lot of money, a lot of resources. It's a big effort, but the success it's on the verge of success, is I guess the right way to say it.
Well,
and the success that I see is them coming to Mariposa and expanding their range back to their native habitat. Like I said, historically they were here in Mariposa in 1953, we know about, and prior to that, we're also expanding the range. The Yurok tribe in the Redwood National Park in Northern California is going to begin releasing condors in 2020. And that will be part of their historic range. They haven't been seen there since 1903. So things are happening, making it good for the condors.
We're making headway.
We are making headway. I think it's a piece of the...
This is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is pretty awesome.
And so the next time they come back to visit, you're going to call me, and maybe we can have a party.
We can have a party and welcome them, watch them fly over. I'd love to see nothing better. I get regular, vultures over my place. These are big brothers of those vultures, and actually they spot the vultures to get there. So.
That's a story you told me, and I would like to share that with the people out there.
No, so condors figure out where food is, the carrion that they eat, the dead meat in the field, by watching their brothers, the turkey vultures. And those turkey vultures circle, and the condors have phenomenal vision, and they see them from as much as 150 miles away out there floating around, and they follow them and go in and raid the food that they're eating. So it's a system built on itself, you know. The vultures work together.
Cool.
So,
It's like the ravens and the wolves.
yeah, right, exactly.
Anyway, thank you, John.
Thank you very much, Bob.
And we have to talk some more.
We will. I'm sure. That'd be
And
fun.
deer.
Yep.
Anyway, for you folks out there, thanks for joining me. And next time John and I get together, if it isn't with a beer over the Condor return, we're going to be talking about our roadways and wildlife, the human interface. You guys have a good day out there, and we'll be seeing you again real soon.